All right, so this is the second section of our problems, 14 through 39. Again, like I just said, guys, if you have a multiple choice test, you can plug the answer choices back in. You have a calculator. It's 35 multiple choice questions. So if you don't remember how to solve and all that good stuff, okay, fine. Then try to do something to help yourself out, and you can plug answer choices back in. Don't just randomly guess. All right, number 14. Before you can solve, everything has to have the same what? Denominator. What is a common denominator between 5 and 5x? 5x, right? So if I am going to make everything have the same denominator, once I do, then I can cross the bottoms off. If my same denominator is going to be 5x, what do I have to multiply this first one by, top and bottom, to have it be 5x? 5 on the bottom, 5 on the top, right? So I have 5 equals, anything with the second one?
No.
12, good. And then what about the 7?
5x.
You got a 5x on the bottom, 5x on the top. So this becomes 35x. Once we do that, guys, the bottom doesn't matter, and now we just solve. So you have 5 equals 12 plus 35x. Yeah? Okay, what do I do? Subtract 12. So you have negative 7 equals 35x. Now what? Divide by 35. Divide by 35. So you have x equals 7 going to 35? Yeah, it's be negative 1/5. Again, if you did not know how to do that, you could take whatever the multiple choice answers are and plug it back in. If you're going to find all the real solutions, guys, all that means is that you're not going to have any imaginaries. What would I do first here? I'm going to get x by itself, so I do what? Add 25 to both sides. So you get x squared equals 25. Now what? Take the square root. What's really important that you put in front of your answer? Plus or minus. I guarantee you on the test, one of the multiple choice questions or answers will be just positive 5. When you put the square root on, your answer becomes plus or minus. Remember? Yes, kind of?
Yes.
All right, trying to get x by itself again. So what do I do on 16? Add 50. So we have 2x squared equals 50. Now what? Not yet. Good. Divide both sides by 2. So x squared equals 25. Now what? Square root. What goes in front of my answer? Perfect. Plus or minus 5. Again, you can take your answer choices and plug them back in. All right, find all the real solutions of this equation. It's x plus 3 quantity squared. How do you get quantity squared to go away?
You point it.
No, you can FOIL, but we're going to go backwards. So what's the opposite of squaring something? Taking the what? Taking the square root. So I have x plus 3 equals, we put the square root on. So what goes in front of my answer? Plus or minus what? 4. So guys, how many answers are you going to have here? 2. What this really says is x plus 3 equals 4 and x plus 3 equals negative 4. So when I do that, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals 1, correct? And x also equals what? Negative. What's negative 4, negative 3? Negative 7. Now on the test, they're going to have those sorts of answers. What can you do with the answer choices? Plug them back in. Guys, I keep saying that because it's important. I really want you guys to do well on this. Some of you that have to take it, if you do really poorly, it's really going to hurt your grade a lot. So you need to make sure that you're doing everything you can. If I'm going to solve by factoring, that means everything needs to be where? On the same side. So if I move everything over, I have 6w squared minus 13w plus 6 equals 0. My a term is not 1. So 6 times 6 is 36. What are the factors of 36 that multiply to give me 36 but add to give me negative 13? 9 and 4. Great. What kind of 9? What kind of 4? Both negative, right? Now, guys, I can't just leave it like this. What do I have to put in front or underneath each term? The 6. right? Because a is not 1. So if I can reduce this, this becomes w minus 3 over 2, right? Agreed? And this becomes w minus 2 over 3. Agreed? So then what happens with this 2? What happens with this 3? It goes out in front. So I have 2w minus 3 equals 0. And 3w minus 2 equals 0. And then we solve. So I'm going to add 3, divide by 2 on the left-hand side. So w equals 3 over 2. Then I'm going to add 2, divide by 3, and w equals 2 over 3. Questions? We okay? All right, what do I do here? Solve the equation by factoring. What should I do first? Get everything on the same side. All right, let's distribute this. So I have x squared equals 3x plus what? Times 3. So I have 504. Then I move everything over like we said. So x squared minus 3x minus 504 equals 0. Guys, 504 is a huge number, is it not? Okay. So what would the best thing to do here, so you don't waste time, best thing to do on your test would be to do what? Plug in answer choices, right? Don't get yourself caught up in that. Same thing here. This is a very large, how am I going to solve this? What do I have to do? A times C, right? So 8 times negative 56, I get some ridiculous number, then I find the factors that give me 57. Just plug the answers in. It's easier for you guys to do. You're going to waste time trying to find factors, and there's no reason to do that. So if we're going to evaluate the expression here, guys, this is different. We're talking about complex numbers. We have real parts and imaginary parts, yes? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. Okay, so look in the middle here. Look in the middle, in between these two things. What am I doing to each parenthesis? I'm adding. So you're just combining like terms, guys. Real goes with real. What's 20 plus 5? 25. And then what's a positive 20i minus 16i? 4i. Plus 4i. That's it. What's the real part? 25. What's the imaginary part? 4i. Good. What are we doing here? Multiplying. Do you see how the top one has a plus sign in the middle? The bottom one does not. What do you need to remember? I times I is I squared. I squared equals negative. Yeah, negative 1. You switch the sign. So FOIL. 1 times 11 is 11. 1 times negative 5i minus 5i. 6i times 11 plus 66i. 6i and negative 5i, negative 30i squared. Nadia said, don't you just switch the sign? Absolutely. You see I squared, you cross it off, make this a plus. Now you have real with real. So it's 11 plus 30? 41. And then a negative 5 and a positive 66. Plus what? 61. Perfect. Plus 61i. We good? All right, let's look at 25 and 26. We'll do these together, and then we'll move on. 25 is 100 minus 50i over 4 minus 3i. Guys, this is a really easy problem. It's just multiplication. But how do I get the i's out of the denominator? We cannot have i's in the denominator, so what do I have to do? Multiply top and bottom by what? What do I multiply by? Why is it 4 plus 3i? You are correct. That's our conjugate, right? Because we have to get what? The i's have to cancel out. You cannot have i's in the denominator. Excuse me? Whatever you change the sign in the middle of the denominator. So now, guys, it's just a multiplication problem. The numbers are big. That's okay. You'll have a calculator. 100 times 4, 400. 100 times 3i plus 300i. Negative 50 times 4 minus 200i, right? Negative 50 times 3i. 50 times 4. And then negative 50 and a positive 3, so negative 75i squared. As soon as you see I squared, what do? Cross off I squared and do what?
Negative 1.
So change the sign. So now, just keep going with the numerator. Just keep simplifying. 400 plus 75 is what? 475, good. And then 300i minus 200i is 100 plus or minus? Plus 100i. Now the bottom, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 3i plus 12i. Negative 3 times 4, negative 12i. Negative 3, positive 3i, negative 9i squared. I see I squared, what do? I see I squared, cross it off, change the sign. What happens, guys, with the positive and negative 12i's? They cancel, so 16 plus 9 is 25. And the last thing we have to do is what? Simplify. Okay, this really says, 475 divided by 25, you're fine. And then 100 divided by 25. So again, you'll have a calculator, but what's 475 divided by 25? $475 divided by, okay? So 19 plus, what's 100i divided by 25? 4i. Good. So on this next one, we're going to do the exact same thing. This is a little easier because it doesn't have as many numbers in it. 25 over 3 minus 4i. How do I get the i's to cancel out? Multiply by the conjugate. So it's going to be 3 plus 4i. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 25 times 3, 75. 25 times 4, 100i. And then on the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4i is 12i. Negative 4 times 3 is minus 12i. Negative 4 positive 4 is negative 16i squared. You see I squared, what do? Cross it off, change the sign. So I have 75 plus 100i on the top. What happens to my positive and negative 12i's? Cancel out. 9 and 16 is 25. And now we simplify. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. There's your answer. You guys all right? Okay. All right, let's look at this next little bit, and then we're done. Evaluate the expression. What's the square root of 49? 7. But there's a negative there, so what should I have with my answer?
7i.
Should be 7i. Did I personally put that square root on? No, it was already there, so you just give the positive answer. Unless you put the square root on yourself, if it's already there, then you're good. You just leave it. How do I solve this? X squared plus 16 equals 0. Minus 16 from both sides, so I get x squared equals negative 16. Now what?
4. Oh.
Square root. So x equals, when I put the house on, I put what in front? Plus or minus. What's the square root of 16? 4. And since there's a negative, what needs to go with it? Perfect. Good. All right. If you get something like this lovely question in number 29. X squared minus 2x plus 5. Well, we would factor. What are the factors of 5 that multiply to give me 5 but add to give me negative 2? Doesn't work, does it? What's the equation that we use when we have a quadratic? Quadratic what? Formula. So A is 1, B is negative 2, and C is 5. So you have negative B, plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5, all over 2 times 1. Okay, so negative 2, that just gives me 2, plus or minus. What's negative 2 squared? 4 minus, what's 4 times 1 times 5? 20, good, all over 2. So I have 2 plus or minus square root of negative 16 over 2. What's the square root of negative 16? 4i. So your answer is 2 plus or minus 4i over 2. One more step. What do I have to do? Simplify. Divide each by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Plus or minus 4i divided by 2 is 2. Good. We good? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, guys, finding all the real solutions. When we factor, we're going to factor, we're going to factor, we're going to factor, we're going to factor. First thing we look for with factoring is G. Okay, so what can I take out of x cubed minus 10x squared plus 21x? X. If I take out an x, I'm left with x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0. All right. Are there factors of 21 that multiply to give me 21 but add to give me negative 10?
7 and 3.
Yes. X minus 7, x minus 3 equals 0. I started off with x cubed. That means I'm going to have how many answers? 3. How many answers will I have here? 3. I have x equals 0, x equals 7, and x equals 3. Agreed? Again, when you guys get to this, I know I keep saying the same thing and only a couple of you are even listening to me, but when you have a multiple choice test and you're talking about finding x's and solving all that stuff, what can you do with your answers?
Plug them in.
Plug them back in. All right. What about here? Okay, 6 answers. Let's factor this. Are there factors of 64 that multiply to give me positive 64, but add to give me negative 65?
64 and 1.
64 and 1, right? Minus 64 minus 1. Guys, what can I break x to the 6th up into? X what, Kaylee? X to the 3rd and x to the 3rd. Good. This is just the difference of cubes. Not even difference of cubes. They're just both perfect cubes. So if I solve both of these, I have x cubed minus 64 equals 0. And x cubed minus 1 equals 0. So move it to the other side. X cubed equals 64. X cubed equals 1. Take the cube root. What number times itself 3 times gives me 64?
16.
Not 16. Close. 4. Good. So x equals 4 here. And then what number times itself 3 times is going to give me 1?
1.
Perfect. Again, though, this problem looks scary at the beginning. So if you don't know what to do, don't just randomly guess. Take your answer choices and your calculator and plug them back in. All right, if I have this, x to the 4th minus 9x squared, I need to move everything where first? To the same side to the left. So I'm going to say x to the 4th minus 9x squared equals 0. Look for the GCF. What do they all have in common? X. How many can I take out? Okay, x squared. I'm left with x squared minus 9. All right, we're in business. Can I factor x squared minus 9 more? Yes. So I have x squared, and then I have x minus 3x plus 3. So I said each piece equal to 0. X squared equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. Yep. Right? So here x equals 0. Here x equals 3. Here x equals negative 3. 33 is the same thing. We're going to do the same thing. Get everything to one side. So I have x to the 5th minus 64x squared equals 0. What can I take out of both of them? X squared again. Then I'm left with x cubed minus 64 equals 0. Set each piece equal to what? 0. So I have x cubed minus 64 equals 0. So here x equals 0. X cubed equals 64. What number times itself 3 times gives me 64? 4. We just did that. Good. But again, guys, I keep saying this over and over again. If you get to something and you don't know how to do it, just plug back in. You have so much time. There's no reason to get these questions wrong. Let me do these last few and then we're done. Solving the inequalities. What do? Divide both sides by? 4. Good. So I have x is less than or equal to 6. They're going to tell you to express solution in interval notation. Okay, so let's graph this real quick so it's easy to do our interval notation. Here's 0, here's 6. What kind of a dot do I have at 6? Close. That means when I write an interval notation, I'm going to have what kind of notation? A bracket or a parenthesis? Bracket. Good. And which way am I going to